Namaste. These conversations, we have these conversations very frequently sitting at his office, and every now and then I kick myself for not having recorded them. So we started this little trend of having these conversations be recorded. You may agree, not agree, disagree. You may like some of these ideas, maybe uncomfortable, little revolting, not fit into our scriptural ideas sometimes. But at the same time, these are profound, at least for me, and I'm absolutely sure for quite a few people out there. This is the way, personally for me, this is the way I learn, by interaction, by talking, asking questions, arguing. This has been our tradition. And so they are elevating, I learn and argue, and hopefully Anand also gathers something valuable in this process, and I'm hopeful and almost sure that a lot of you would found these useful. One of the criticism we got, or at least I got in the first conversation, was around the seemingly benevolent ideas of Islam, and so we'll explore that. Looking forward to your comments. Please leave your comments in the comment section in the YouTube video once this goes live below. Let us give your feedback, perhaps even your questions that I may take forward in these conversations with Anand, and not only Anand, but with perhaps with other people that I hope to interact in a series of these videos, an understanding of the Hindu civilization or culture or religious spiritual traditions. Thank you. It's the whole principle of Kafirhood. It's so deeply entrenched, and Kafirhood is not only about ki you are you're non-believer. Non-believer is something else. I mean, you can say whatever about me, I can think whatever about you, but this is it's a pejorative term. It's looked down upon. It's a hateful term. It is nothing but hate speech. That day I was listening to somebody who's a researcher on Islam. He says 51% of the Quran is dealing with Kafirhood only. And 14% of all of the Quranic scripture, which is called the Shariat, only 14% is Quran. Hadith and everything is about the life of Muhammad, including emulating all the things he did, whether it was horrible things like Banu Qurayza, where he killed 900 soldiers overnight, took sex slaves, all of this business. I mean, everything is wiped. Ye nahi ho sakta, wo nahi ho sakta, everything is, I don't know. This is all just, I don't know how one does not draw patterns if it's an aberration. But if there is a pattern to a human being or to an entire community's behavior, then it's dishonest, in my opinion, to say that no, I'm going to argue the other way.
Now, let me ask the question.
Yeah.
The purpose of looking at or wanting to find patterns in other people's behavior could be driven, there could be various reasons why one might want to do it.
No, firstly, let me clarify. Sorry to interrupt you. I'm not trying to draw a pattern because of some reason of my... I don't care what this is. I'm not doing it out of academic interest. I'm doing it because it affects me. How does it affect me?
Now that's the question that I wanted.
It affects me because it's their worldview of looking at me. One says out of good spirit. Christianity says they want to convert me because otherwise I will end up in hell. I am a non-believer, and according to both whatever Old Testament, New Testament, whichever place, I'm going to go to hell. So poor guys are trying to convert me so that they can get to heaven and I can get to heaven. All good spirit is how I understand it. And the other guys are basically saying that, 7 कुछ ऐसा सुना है, 7 पीढ़ियां पीछे और आगे, your sins are wiped out according to the Shariat, according to Allah's diktat. If you convert Kafir, a polytheist, and bring them to Islam, specifically, supposedly women. And this is the root cause of all love jihad, where you are basically deceiving people, and whether it is by mocking their whole idea of Devi Devatas, Okay, I mean, why do you care whether I believe in a elephant god or a monkey god? How is this your problem? Why should you come and keep breaking my murtis because Muhammad broke the Kaaba temple? It's just going on and on unstopped.
An interesting project might actually, given what you are describing, the interesting project might be actually to see when did the whole idea, what is the genesis of the whole idea that that there is a need to convert people to your view. Let me finish what I'm saying. And the reason why I say that is I can safely say that I have not read the Quran, so I actually don't know what is in the Quran. And very often I am aware that people peddle, just like they peddle about Hindus, they peddle stories of things that might be there in the Quran and all. So as we accept some of these narratives, is to one to verify whether there actually is stuff like that, or is it differently interpreted. Now each sentence, every sentence is capable of being very often is capable of being interpreted in many ways. Let me, not having read the Quran, but generally having explored,
So why don't you read some of it?
so generally having explored, I have no interest in it. but
I get it, but then without investigating and truly going even on, okay, why don't you just simply go to Quran.com and I'll read out here right now two verses. This is Quran chapter 3 verse 151. We shall cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve, because they ascribe unto Allah partners, for which no warrant has been revealed. Their habitation is the fire, and hapless the abode of wrongdoers. Basically, what is being said is the following: that believe only and only in Allah, and do not equate other forms, other ideas of God, okay, which are ilaha, for example, with Allah. If you do that, you are doing shirk, okay, which is basically, if I go and worship a yantra like you have here, or a murti, I am equating that with Allah, and this is shirk. There is then a whole behavior defined of how do you behave with people who engage in such activity. Let's read chapter 2 verse 257. Allah is the protector of those who believe. So Allah is not a protector of those who do not believe. He is only saying that I will protect if you believe in me. He brings them out of depths of darkness into light. As for those who disbelieve, their friends are the rebels. This is basically, rebels means kafirs here. They bring them out from the light into depths of darkness, which means that I, as a kafir, try to bring Muslims from light, Islam,
from darkness to light.
No,
Oh, okay.
as a kafir, I'm bringing them from light into darkness if I'm asking them to follow or inspiring them to follow my ways. Those are people of fire. They will remain there forever. So, in eternity of creation, 70, 80, 90 years of my life, this Allah sits there and the Christian God sits there and judges me on 70, 80, 90 years, 80, 90 years of my life and puts me in hell forever. Matlab eternity. Matlab, what kind of a ridiculous idea of a creator is this?
Let me ask you slightly, and I'm drawing a bit of a parallel. Are you able to comfortably eat with a fork, knife, and spoon?
I am okay.
You're not perfect.
Yeah, I'm not as good as the British, for example.
So now what happens is, and this is, I'm talking about practical life. I'm not being judgmental here. So what happens is that the easy thing for us Indians to experience is go to 5-star hotel. How comfortable are you eating rice with your hand in a 5-star hotel? But when I say you, I'm not talking about you as an individual. I'm talking about most of us.
Yeah, I mean, I think the environment will pressurize you into using spoon and fork. That's the point.
Correct. So that's when you try and eat with hand. If you're struggling to eat with spoon and knife, you'll feel a bit embarrassed when if you see aage piche log are doing a very clinical job. Talk about the experience of the person who goes to this dinner in a five-star hotel in Delhi, who is not very good with fork and knife, and he looks around that everybody is eating with fork and knife, and he becomes uncomfortable because he's in his mind he is very aware that I'll be judged on this basis. What is happening over here? As I said, I'm not judging, I'm analyzing what's happening in my head. What is happening in my head? And it's not wrong. It is what it is. But we just need to recognize it. It's not as if you should be like this or you should be like that. But what is happening in my head if I can't eat properly is I start feeling slightly inferior. Because I suspect that people around me think poorly of me. It doesn't matter what the guys actually are thinking, but in my own head, I start thinking poorly of my lack of ability. I don't have the confidence to eat with hand. I don't have the confidence to say, मैं इससे नहीं खाऊंगा, I'm not capable, I'll eat with hand. So,
I see where you're going with this. Why should I be conscious of Murti puja?
So, why should I be conscious of what are you thinking of me? Some of our issues of this nature come about because we start looking at ourselves through other people's eyes, and it's not right or wrong. It's just an analysis. I'm not saying you should do that or should not do that. But what happens is that in my head, reason why I react the way I react is that I don't care what somebody else thinks of me. So, for example, coming just to these verses, you will go to heaven, you will go to earth. मेरे को मतलब ही नहीं है. I don't accept the idea of heaven or I don't accept the idea of hell.
I agree with some of where you're going with this. Okay, why am I so conscious about Murti puja? And if I am, why do I just, कि यार अच्छा जो तुम्हें सोचना है सोचो. मैं इतना confident हूँ. I have no sense of inferiority in doing Murti puja or whatever, right? Of course, there are reasons for it.
हो भी सकता है inferiority, but even if it is, just accept it कि है, ठीक है. Just there's nothing wrong.
Now I'll come to the next part of this. Okay, so let me now read Quran chapter 4 verse 89. They wish that you should disbelieve as they have disbelieved, and thus you become all alike. So do not take friends from among them unless they migrate in the way of Allah. Then, if they turn away, seize them and kill them wherever you find them. And do not take from among them a friend or helper. Now,
let me respond. So, again, as I said, I don't know. I've not read the Quran. I don't know how to interpret it even. Now,
see, you can't keep using this argument to deny whatever.
No. Let me explain fully.
Horrible things it keeps saying.
Explain fully. Aren't we acutely aware of people selectively picking some things and plastering them on us and saying, you guys are this? So, people will selectively pick things from your scriptures and interpret it in a way and plaster it them. Wait. We are aware. We are critical of other people doing selective picking, not understanding the context, plastering it on my head and telling me this is who you are. I do have a problem with that. You also have a problem with that. And all of us as a nation, we have a problem with that sort of selective thing. I'll make 2 points here. Is that I'm extremely wary of selective stuff that gets picked out because I know that is exactly what happens to me, and what can happen to me can happen to somebody else as well. But if you start intruding in a manner that is unacceptable to me, so that is where it becomes relevant to me to figure out how I want to react with that particular situation. I don't find fault with what you are saying or what I'm just trying to explain that it's not wrong, but there is a bigger picture as well, which should not be ignored. So it's not as if this is wrong. And this exists because there has been that sense of intrusion. there has been the sense of attack. And therefore, and it has happened for an extended period of time. And therefore, particularly, I would say, I think in North India, it is experienced. In Southern India, there is less experience. It's not as it's not been experienced. But Southern India is more hearsay. I have heard that this is what happened to so and so. Right? But in North India, there is direct experience. And therefore, the reaction is not unexplainable. It is understandable. It can be appreciated. What I'm saying is, but there is also more to that picture than just this.
It's not my moderation if there is more to that picture. This I have to deal with every day.
Now,
all I'm asking for is that the Kashi Vishwanath was broken, sure, okay, kisi ne toda. He was a horrible man who believed in all of these, whatever. There is a fatwa for it, everything, right? You keep calling the man who broke temples and had fatwas like that. You keep justifying that by saying, no, he also had fatwas where he gave to mathas. You not only say that you gave money to mathas, but actually you built temples, which is a completely ridiculous, false idea of what Aurangzeb did. Then you make a hero out of him, you make an Aurangzeb an Alamgir out of him, that he is the sword of Islam and whatever else. You make a Ghazi out of him. You make him a hero. You say Babur and Aurangzeb are my heroes, and Ram and everybody is on the side. They must be your hero. So once you've occupied my home, you've broken my temple, you have no disrespect, you have no respect for that. You do not now, when you want to reconcile and move forward as a nation, you refuse to hand it back. Some of these are extremely important places for us. So what do? We keep fighting, cajoling in court. The government is not with us. The state is not with us. It's extremely frustrating. It's been a 500-year battle to get the Ram Mandir made. Now Kashi Vishwanath, when you go on this trip, they say, the court says that they will say that, Arey, ab to Ram Mandir ho gaya tha, you were supposed to end all of this. Why don't you just be good human beings who've lived and been born here? Hand over Aram se, instead of making heroes out of Aurangzebs and continuously trying to poke your finger in the Hindu's nose.
So let me respond.
You know where this comes from? This comes from a very supremacist idea of Islam, of Allah, which actually that there is only this one God, and your ideas of you mock everything else. There is this whole thing in Muslims' mind that we will rule the world, we will turn India into an Islamic nation by hook or by crook. This is the whole ideology of Allah. There is no peace when you have people like that, when you have ideologies like that. Why does India keep running into Pakistan? Because the entire army, it's not just an invading army, but it is driven by an ideology which actually says that we are an army in the service of Allah, and we are in the service of Allah by doing jihad. There's a very beautiful term Sanjay Dikshit mentioned. It's called jihad-e-sabiullah, something like that, which is jihad in the service of Allah. We are kafirs. India is a kafir nation. They are obligated, given not only an order, a commandment to all Muslims that this is the way you have to serve me is by killing the kafir, eliminating kafirhood from the planet.
So it's interesting since you mentioned the Pakistani army. So we see it's not wrong. What you are saying is not inaccurate. My question with some of this is that it is not necessarily the full picture. It may be that I am uninformed. It may not be the full picture. So let me describe another part of the picture which actually does not fit into this narrative that you were describing as Sanjay Dikshit describes it. Is that the Pakistani army had no qualms doing what they did with the Muslims in Bangladesh. Now, that, please explain to me, how does it come from the Quran? It does not. The truth of our lives is nothing is in complete white or complete black, and most of our lives are in the gray.
Agreed.
So, given that it is in the grey, my own.
I'll answer the Bangladesh piece, but by the way, why firstly, yes, it is Punjabi dominance. It is misplaced Punjabi dominance of that we are the blood of whatever. And why that comes in? Because most of Pakistani Punjabis believe and trace their roots into Turks and Arabs and think of themselves as superior because they are true blue-blooded Muslims.
Correct.
Okay, whether they are not or no is just completely ridiculous, but they believe that.
Absolutely.
And they were trying to fix what General Niazi says is that मैं in some very pejorative term for talking to Bangladeshi Muslims कि इनकी नस्ल में ठीक कर दूंगा. Why? Because they wear saris, they behave like Hindus. He cannot accept this, that this is all Kafirhood, this is all shirk. If it does not fit the Sharia of Quran
So
and
it's great that you say that, because the Quran doesn't say that.
Quran doesn't say what?
See, the Quran doesn't say what Niazi said. Remember that those are Muslims to whom he is
actually saying all this.
No. About the Bangladeshis or about people like the Bangladeshis. Remember that the Bangladeshis are Muslims.
The hadith of Muhammad, the Shariat, actually before Muhammad died, he actually said that Islam will be broken into, or my ummah will be broken into 72 or 73 sects. Only one of them will be a true Islam. Basically, this war is endless. First, you eliminate everybody who does shirk, which is Shias, Hazaras, by the Sunni.
You mean those poor fellows in Indonesia and China and Bangladesh and in Africa and in any of the Americas or in Europe are all idiotic Muslims? Basically, they have become Muslims, but essentially they are non-Muslims.
That's what some sects basically. See, the Ahmadiyas say that we are true Muslims because Muhammad was not the last prophet. You can't argue with them because Allah has given us all of this to convert you, that your whole idea is false. Basically, firstly, I have a serious problem with endless proselytization. Because I see, like Gandhi did, Gandhi saw that as violence against people. I see it in that light. It's good or bad, I see it in that light. That's one. Endless proselytization. Okay, the Sufis did that also. However spiritual you were, we were talking to Professor Kapil Kapoor, and he actually acknowledged that most Sufis did that. They were barring a few like Shah Hussain, who were basically indigenous Punjabis who were basically writing spiritual poetry. Okay, barring that, they were horrible people. They were actually asking people from outside to come and invade so that Islam can spread. I wonder if it is the idea is to spread spirituality, make people more spiritual, or the idea is to spread Islam's idea of spirituality. It seems to be the latter.
So very often this distinction between spirituality and religion I don't fully comprehend.
Okay.
So I will say
basically people adhyatma, right? A very beautiful Indian term.
So I would say, for want of a better term, let's say that there are very few wars that are fought with, or very few things that happen at that kind of scale. When war is something gigantic scale, even at an individual level, there are very few times that there are times at an individual level that we do things on account of one single motivation. But very often when nations act, there are multiple motivations at play. That is the reality. Often what we do is which is the reason why I say what I say, is that when you look at newspaper reports on what happened yesterday's history, you will find people who are doing genuine reporting of that matter. It's a matter of fact. I have observed it and two other guys have observed it. When I read the report in one newspaper and another newspaper, I find there's a variance between them and my own version of what might have happened. Therefore, there is always a problem with when we have a black and white approach to history. Okay. So there is, it might be more grayish, darker grey, it might be lighter grey.
I guess that's all I'm saying.
No.
So if it is
And therefore-
usually darker, blackish, grayish as a
Therefore-
pattern, then I have a problem.
Therefore,
Yeah.
my approach in this matter is that yes, there was a point in time where you're absolutely right that in India's history there was a darker grey. There might have been elements of dark, complete black, darker grey, and that is what it was. In my experience as of today, and I'm talking today, I'm not talking about history. In my experience of today, it is not that dark grey.
So you're coming back to the point that it is firstly, okay, it is certainly not as dark as it was, say, 500 years, 300 400 years under Aurangzeb and all of that, absolutely. And if I may add, we have a first Hindu prime minister in 1,000 years, okay, as the as the head of the government. It's not happened, so perhaps, yes, these are brighter times, you may or may not agree with that view, whatever. The problem, however, still exists simply because this whole ideology of that I will find heaven, which has hoods and whatever, it's all sexuality firstly.
Which in itself is not bad. I mean,
sexuality is not bad, but it is not in this life. In this life, you must sacrifice whatever you have to go to heaven, where you will find some virgins who you can have endless sex with. I mean, this is just, imagine the ridiculousness of reducing human intelligence and agency to such gutter levels.
But if somebody is finding happiness with
in that, let them
why should you interfere?
No, firstly, I think it is not my job to interfere. There is this Christian priest who actually says that Hinduism operates at different levels, which Christianity needs to learn from. What he's saying is that based on the experience of the person of the nature of reality or the nature of God or whatever, he or she operates at that level, and Hinduism accepts and embraces that. Right? Wonderful idea. We are willing to
So I have a problem with that particular kind of statement, because here is one thing that it is saying Hinduism operates at different levels. First of all, in my personal view, there is no monolithic Hinduism.
Okay, fair enough. I mean,
and
that's a
it is
conversation.
it's a very individual oriented thing that we do. Nobody needs another religion, does not need to learn from anything from the multiple individuals that constitute what is generally been branded as Hinduism. You do what you want to do. So what you see, there is a fundamental, there is a structural difference in the language that we use, in the conversation that we use. And which is why you'll find very often I push back against some of the things that you might say, is because it is framed in a construct that is Christian. So
this will become an academic conversation, because there is a lack of terminology. For the lack of terminology, I use the word Hinduism or call it Sanatanism or call it Indic or whatever.
Let's interpret therefore what this priest said as slightly differently. He's saying that let's learn from the Indians the multiple ways in which you can approach, and let's incorporate it into Christianity is essentially what.
Be more accepting of people operating at different level, and Christianity needs to reform to say no, there is only one idea of God. That is actually what this person is saying.
So I understand.
Which is actually a very Indic idea.
So think of it like this. See, again, it is very informative when you look at how Christianity has evolved over the years. Few hundred years back, this person would have been burnt at the stake for heresy.
Yes, possibly. Yeah, surely.
So, history evolves in the manner it does. Religions evolve in the manner that they do. They go in cycles. In the Indian sort of approach, it has been clearly explained to us, and that's which is something that I said to you last time, is that I don't have a sense of pride of being Hindu. I think it's a huge opportunity. It is a blessing to be able to explore it. So I am born in a tradition and a civilization that has looked at this scientifically, has given me a logical, structured approach.
No, fair
to
enough.
things.
So it is deviating from us.
But coming to
Yeah.
reason why I said that is our approach actually talks about how there will be ups and how there will be downs in civilization. I mean, whether you call it yugas or whatever you might want to, however you might want to describe it. Civilization progresses and those yugas, etc., are not for the Indian geography, where our scriptures are global in their nature and beyond the globe, are more universal. So they extend beyond even the planet. That's the manner in which our approach is structured, which is why I think that there's this huge opportunity. This knowledge is just sitting around as long as we open our eyes and we look for it and we find it and we enjoy it. We enjoy what we get out of that knowledge.
So fair enough, but there are people, now coming back to the point, that there are people who firstly mock this, who think you're wrong, and it's not about me, it's not about me feeling whatever you think. Okay, there were Charvakas also in the past who mocked, no problem.
Yes.
They did not go out with sanctification of their own idea of God and said it is my right, I am actually doing the right thing with sanctification from Allah or the Christian God to kill you.
Now the problem is on the extreme end that I will kill you,
Yes.
and on the least is that I will treat you like a second grade citizen.
Yes. And if I were to assume power, I will treat you like that.
In the least and at the least as a second grade citizen. So that is the scope in which and that's where we have the problem. In
Horrible space, both ends are extremely horrible space for anybody to live in.
Like you just said, we now have a Hindu Prime Minister. We are I mean, people say that the Hindu Rashtra bana denge. We are a Hindu nation. You take a Rashtra, which is a Sanskrit term or a Hindi term, from nation, which is an English term. Essentially, we are already a Hindu nation.
That's not true. We may want to, RSS may want to call it, but there is nothing Hindu about this Rashtra or this construct of the constitution and whatever.
It depends on, that's why it's again the play of words. Is that therefore it is what is Hindu and what is not Hindu. My own view is that we already are a nation of which follows this tradition, where the knowledge is so readily available. It's not readily available anywhere else.
Knowledge is available, it is not codified in how the state is going to be run.
No. And that's something that I've mentioned in the past, that my big problem with the Indian state is for reasons, I mean, I can speculate and I can be critical, but for reasons I would say best known to the Indian state, is that they see no value in bringing to fore some of these great pleasures that Indian civilization has. Every pleasure comes with its darknesses, but I think the pleasures outweigh the darknesses.
Absolutely. I mean,
And we as of now don't have a state. It does not matter if the head of the state thinks one way or the other. As a common citizen, what is relevant to me is what does the state deliver to me on my table.
I firstly completely agree with that. I have no objection. But that is the nature of the state. And the state actually incentivizes these abhorrent ideologies to actually attack me on a daily basis, attack my ways of life, even kill, treat me like second-class citizens. Actually, Hindus are discriminated against in our own...
So I don't think that we are discriminated anymore.
But that's exactly what the constitution does. It actually... The temples are under the government, but the mosques and churches will not be.
What I am saying is, I'm more focused on the future than on the past, is what I am saying. So, I'm not disagreeing with some of the things that you are saying. All I'm saying is there's more to it than just that. My greater focus is on what in the future.
Sure.
In the future, the Indian state needs to provide opportunity which allow me to explore some of these traditions. Those who are not interested need not explore.
Wonderful.
It is a free country. It's a free world.
Which needs to become Indic in its nature rather than secular and socialist and whatever, which are completely non-Indic ideas in some ways.
Again, secular has two ways of interpreting the term.
Yeah, secular, okay. So firstly, it can remain plural, which is
secular is
rejection, atheistic and rejection of any ideas of religion or spiritual traditions or whatever.
And I think that is where, while the state, as a state, you've got to be equidistant or as close to every. So you want to promote atheism, fine, but allow the other thing to happen as well.
Yeah, sure, but that's France. That's not us.
But that is what, as I say, what we need to be in the future is that we need to be exploring more of what the Indian. At the end of the day, I don't know where. I mean, in my view, I will have many lives. I don't know whether next life where I'll end up being. So at least in this life, whatever I can do, I need to do as much as I can to promote, to bring to life something that is been overloaded with other stuff.
Okay.
The opportunity is enormous. I mean, to the extent that we spend our energy debating the past, we have finite amount of energy. Now that energy, spend some time understanding the past, but my own approach would be to spend greater amount of that energy in taking off the covers that have been put, that are so heavy actually to take off, but spend a greater amount of energy taking off those covers.
I agree with your idea. Yes, if you might say that I'm in this complaining mode, but it feels unfair. Firstly, the state does not, and then there are these two proselytizing violent ideologies of Orthodox Christianity and Islamist ideologies, or Islam if you like, who's constantly invading my space of allowing me to live and let live. They don't have it.
All that I would say is, it's not the full picture. There is more to that picture, but we don't need to debate whether there is more to that picture or not. As long as we are focused on, I mean, bringing greater knowledge, some people say that is you're driving India into the dark ages or in the medieval past. And I would say that the idea over here is not driving back or not. Do you want to improve your life for tomorrow?
So you're basically saying don't spend your energies in debating or fighting these battles, rather spend your energy on bringing the cooler, which is bringing the technology of India, of our occult, of our spiritual sciences, technology, of who we were, what we knew. Yes.
I mean, you feel free to reinvent the wheel if you would like to, but it's not necessary that, and if the knowledge is lost for how to make the wheel, we do need to reinvent the wheel.
And somehow actually spend your energies in changing the nation or whoever we are constitutionally perhaps, to be more of who we were.
Yeah.
Be more Indic.